Time for one quick question.
Yeah.
I've heard you say before that what we see with our eyes is a vibrational interpretation. Is that interpretation the vibrational interpretation within me, or is it in what I'm trying to perceive?
It's within you.
Okay. So do I see vibration, is what I guess I'm trying to ask. Do I see vibration outside of me, or is it my vibration that allows me to see things the way that I see them?
Well, that was very well stated. It's your vibration that allows you to see, and that's why we say that what you believe is what you see.
Of course.
But your eyes are interpreting vibration. But your expectation has more to do with it than we can ever begin to explain to you. Your fingertips are interpreting vibration. And in this conversation, what we're always seeking to awaken is that there is a vibrational frequency that you don't see with your physical senses, that your emotions are giving you. And that's the blending or not with that empowerment that you're reaching for. When you wake up in the morning, the cells of your body have pushed the reset button. And if you don't reintroduce the beliefs that you have about your body or about your ability as soon as you wake up, then you have a fresh start. But it's not easy to wake up and just start thinking all new thoughts. So that's why we're saying it's sort of a gradual process.
Right.
Someone sent Esther a book called The Magic Eye. And she remembers seeing these pictures in the mall some years ago where it just looked like almost like a wallpaper, a very dense pattern. But when you look at it, hold it to your eyes close and then gradually move it away. When you look at it as if you're trying to look through it rather than at it, these three-dimensional images show up on the page. Have any of you experienced those? Esther remembers when they were in the mall, she would get really good at it. She would, especially if they had glass in front of the picture, because she would look at her own reflection in the glass. And because she was not looking at the image, but she was looking at something other than the image, then the three-dimensional image would jump out. So someone sent her a book of it, and she remembered seeing it years and years and years, even before she knew us, was the last time she had looked at that. And she read the description of how they were describing to see the three-dimensional images. And she laughed because it's exactly the description that we've been giving people to see energy or to see auras. Can you see an aura around Esther here?
Yeah.
Some of you. When you look at her, rather than looking at her, try to look through her. Try to see something on the wall behind her. So you're softening your vision. You're a bit close. Take your glasses off. Your eyes are trained to see what you see. That's that expectation. But you can see more than you've trained your eyes to see, but you can't do it by looking in the same way that you've been looking, which is very much what you just said to us. Mm-hmm. So as you look at Esther, try to look through her, and what you may see is a sort of, it would be like a shadow if it was absence of light, but it's the presence of light, so it's like a light around her. Even sometimes you can see it between her fingers. Can you see it? Mm-hmm. So keep looking, just softly. If you can't see it, it just means you're demonic. Just look softly. And if you're wearing glasses, it might be a good idea to take them off, because your glasses cause you to focus in a different way than what we're wanting you to do here. So just look in the direction of her. We'll goose the energy up just a little bit. You're a bit close, but you may be able to see it. Yeah? Mm-hmm. Yeah? A bit more? A bit more? And when we move away, sometimes you can see it still standing there. Yeah. Yeah. So you're seeing something that you usually don't see, because you're using your eyes in a different way. And when you get in that high-flying frequency, then that's why you'll be driving and you'll have an impulse to change lanes just at the appropriate moment, because somebody was intending to do something and you had access to that knowledge. When you're in that high frequency and you're involved in sports, especially in competitive sports, you know what somebody else is going to do. You know where they're going to be. You have advanced announcements, because everything happens vibrationally before it happens physically. And when you're tuned into that frequency, your anticipation is better, you see. You feel an impulse. You feel an impulse to do something because broader perspective is everywhere and knows everything that is important to you. You feel an impulse to do something, and if you're in that high-flying vibration, you'll follow the impulse, and when you follow the impulse, the payoff is really big. And after the fact, you say, oh boy, that was sure a lucky thing that I got that hunch and I followed through with that. Well, that's what that's all about. Your extensions of source energy, and you're allowing yourself to benefit from that knowledge in a more profound, productive way. Really good.
Good morning. You've been talking about the vibration, and I'm vibrating right now. I'm experiencing such joy and excitement with the lessons that I've been learning from you, and I've had moments of, I had this one experience where it was such a pure excitement and love, and it was so intense. I mean, I literally thought my hands and feet were going to vibrate off my body. And I just want to know, though, because I have those moments, but then when I'm not, I feel like I can't be at that level all the time, or I'd be totally exhausted.
That's what we meant earlier when we were saying sometimes it's love, sometimes it's eagerness, sometimes it's interest. In other words, you can be on that high-flying disc with different degrees of momentum and still be where you want to be. You're right. You wouldn't want to be bouncing off the walls like that. And in fact, that sensation in your hands, when you're feeling it that strong in your body, that's a slight indication of some residual resistance that's working its way out.
Okay.
Sort of like the day Esther could hear the compressor on the refrigerator in the bus, she knew that something was wrong with the motor. In other words, you know what we're talking about. You can hear it in an engine. Can't you hear it when it sort of gets out of whack? Your washing machine, can't you hear it when it's getting out of balance? It's a little bit like that.
So when I've experienced such this intense, I mean, I actually have, when I was feeling that intensity that one time, because it hasn't been quite at that level, I actually almost felt a little bit of, not shame, but silliness, that I said to myself, Janie, I can't believe you've ever worried about anything. Because there was such a knowing of peace and just knowing that everything is going to be great. It's going to be wonderful. But I guess
and in that conversation with yourself, it undoubtedly subsided a little bit because you introduced resistance to that pure thought as you admonished yourself. You see what we're getting at?
Yes. So I guess my question is, I feel like I have this knowledge. I feel like I had it even as a small child, even before I was introduced to your teachings, in the sense of I just always knew I would be okay, that everything was wonderful. And if I know this, why is it that, and the gentleman was speaking earlier, when you feel like you have a resistance, or I feel like I get in a low place, it's like, why would I put my hand on the stove when I know it's going to burn and not feel well? I'm wondering.
Well, because you were born into this environment of variety and contrast for the purpose of joyous expansion. And how could you know what you do want if you don't know what you don't want? The contrast is necessary for the focus. But the beating up on yourself for the contrast is not necessary. That's the piece that we're really wanting to help you to release from your experience. It's perfectly, in other words, if something unpleasant presents itself to you, we are not asking you to stand and look at it and say, well, I want to practice the art of allowing, and so I accept and embrace all unwanted things. That's not the point at all. When you see something you don't want, it helps you to identify with more clarity what you do want. It's all part of that contrasting experience. And many of our physical friends have said, well, why, if source energy, if non-physical is pure positive energy, why would I subject myself to variety and contrast? Why would I put myself in a position of being diminished in some way? Why would I put myself in a place where I would not always 100% of the time feel that pure energy? And we say, because the creative process is 3 steps. Step 1, ask for what you want. Well, how are you going to do that if you don't know what you don't want? You need that definition. You need that experience to help you to define it. Just don't get hung up in that part of it. Once you've identified, that's the better question to ask. Once I know I want it, why am I beating the drum of the absence of it? Why do I ever talk about what I don't want? Well, there's a very simple answer to that question. Momentum. You talk about what you don't want because Law of attraction is bringing to you more thoughts that are like the thoughts that have been active within you. And the answer to breaking that tendency is wake up in the morning and reach for the best feeling thoughts you can find and sustain them as long as you can, and don't beat up on yourself when you fall off that disc, and then the next morning do it again, and the next morning do it again, until before you know it, you will be predominantly focused upon what you do want. There will be, for a while, maybe even for a long while in your experience, residual from habits of thought. In other words, there are hot buttons that keep getting pushed. Because let's say that someone took advantage of you financially. And even though it doesn't really matter anymore, it was a while ago, it is having really no impact on your experience now. It felt wrong when it happened, and it feels wrong every time you think about it. Well, don't think about it. Well, that's easier to say than not, because in a conversation, somebody else is telling you about that, and it reminds you, oh yeah, that happened to me. Or you're watching television and it's displayed, and you think, oh yeah, that happened to me. So there are all kinds of reasons that it might be activated. So if something unwanted is continually activated within you, that means that where you left it is on a lower flying disc. And every time it's activated, you're going to go back there. So you might want to do something about leaving that in another place. What we would do is address it from, get in a good feeling place, and then think about it. Now really, is this something that I really need to worry about? Is this something that really affects me in a negative way now? Couldn't I say that this was part of my learning experience? Aren't I better off for having had this experience? Do I really want to blame this person who I don't even really know what was going on in their life experience? Do I really want to feel bad about this? Is anything worth feeling bad about it? Aren't I ready to just sort of let this go? And as you talk to yourself like that, from that place of feeling good, and you leave it in a different place, then next time that shows up in a movie or in a conversation, you won't spring to it like you did before, because you left it in a different vibrational place. And before you know it, you will have worked enough bugs out of your past belief system that you won't be threatened, isn't the right word, or jeopardized isn't the right word, challenged might be the better word. You won't be challenged by your own active vibrations that contradict how you really want to feel. That's all that's going on. You're challenged by active vibrations that are contrary to what you really want.
So in reality, the contrast is necessary in this whole big...
Yeah.
And when I change the way I look at contrast and realize it's just going to get me back into connection and look at it as a positive thing, there really is no problem.
We've been talking about step one is knowing what you don't want, which causes you to know what you do want. So you launch this rocket, which goes into this vortex. Now we know, hard for you to see, maybe not want to take our word for it, but take our word for it. There's a vibrational reality that exists as a result of what you've been living. And it is all that you want. It's the best that you've synthesized out of all that you've lived. And your source stands there in that knowing, reflecting that vibration to you all the time. That's what your guidance system is. So then, step two is all of that. Step three is you're reaching for the best thought that you can find, and you're successful in it. And when you do, now your point of attraction is such that there's no break in the frequency. There's no variance in the frequency between where you stand and what you want. And when there's no variance in the frequency, then what you want is flowing into your experience, where just like you just witnessed being able to see something in the aura demonstration that you usually don't see, you're in the right place at the right time. You hear something, you get an impulse to stop, you are inspired to behavior, you rendezvous with things, and there's a demonstration all around you of what you want flowing into your experience. So we say that's a really nice place to be. You've got control of your point of attraction. Then, in control of your point of attraction, standing in that place of recognition that the universe has yielded to you something that you want, you're not going to stop